What's going on, all you beautiful and sexy people? This is Manufactured Opinion here, bringing you some more delicious and scrumptious Nioh gameplay. And today we are talking about a build that I've been using for the past couple of days and have absolutely fallen in love with. A, because it doesn't rely on Sloth, which I personally hate now. I don't hate people that use it. I just don't like Sloth. And B, it reminds me a lot of Red Tearstone from Dark Souls, and the level of skill, or maybe not skill, finesse it took to pull off that build. And there's a couple different ways you can go about this build, when I'll get into that a little bit later on down the line here. But I want to quickly run through my gear and my stats, my guardian spirit, and then the clan that I'm not in that can make this build even stronger, just to make it a little bit less, I don't want to say overpowered because it's a single player game yet. PvP isn't out. We don't really know if living weapons or guardian spirits are even going to be allowed in PvP. So when I see stuff like that on build videos, we don't even know it's going to be in PvP. But whatever, that's a tangent. I'll run through my gear, thought processes behind all my gear, all of my equipment, all of my skills and all that kind of stuff as quickly as I can, and then get into some clips of me using this just in the first region on New Game Plus. I am level 119. In the clips you're about to see, I'm maybe level 114, 115, doing 180, level 180, 190. New Game Plus missions, or Way of the Strong missions. That's not to say that those aren't necessarily hard without this build, but I absolutely ripped face using this build on these missions. Like, I joke about smashing square in some of my other videos, but this one just brings it to a whole nother level, depending on how you play it. But anyways, gear. Fanatic Armor. This is the biggest reason why this is comparable to Red Tearstone Ring, with a few exceptions. One, obviously you see that 2 pieces set bonus right there, close combat attack when you're in a critical health state, plus 30%. That is the biggest, I'll call it, relation to the Red Tearstone that you'll see. But unlike the Red Tearstone, you can also get other status boosting effects from being in a critical health state, depending on what you have in your weapons. And you see that on your weapons and armor. You see that 6-piece bonus down below, special effects, critical. Now this boosts all of the effects that you get from the stats with the critical in the parentheses, parenthesis, that you see here and on the gear that I'm about to show you. Now, I want you to pay close attention to that 4-piece bonus, Suzaku. And if I'm butchering that, please yell at me in the comments. I want all caps. But this is a very important guardian spirit and very important distinction on how you want to play this build. Anyways, so there's the full Fanatic's armor set. Before I go down below, let me just show you. Now, I was talking about differences between the Red Tearstone and this particular armor set. Depending on what you reforge onto your armor, or even if you're lucky enough to forge these stats straight out of the blacksmith, more power to you. But you can see that last yellow line down below. Reduced damage from attack when in critical state, 19.7%. And where is dodge key usage when in critical? So I have better stamina regen when I dodge. And then I have dash key usage and dodge key usage on the boots. And then just some other stuff I'm not very happy with yet. And obviously a caveat, I've been rolling face, and this isn't even plus 10. I can't even imagine what this would do once I hit plus 10 on all this gear. I'm kind of afraid of it, to be honest. I'm kind of afraid to even show it because I'm having so much fun with this build. I'm just afraid of what may happen to it. But anyways, I was eventually able to get some fire on my lovely sword here, which is only plus 2. And fire is very important because of the guardian spirit that we're going to be using. If you decide to use utilize a different way to play this build, then fire isn't as important. Very key component of this build, and I pulled luck straight from my bunghole on this. I was actually able to get the Yasakani Magatama. Again, if I'm butchering anything, please proverbially gouge my eyes out in the comments section. But I was able to get this off Umi Boner, farming his eye shards, or eye stones, whatever the hell you want to call them. As you can see, it's a level 42. So I was actually doing the way of the samurai, just farming eye stones that way. And somehow, this miraculously dropped off of him. There is an easier way to do it, rescuing What's-Her-Face's grandfather, glitching through some walls and getting the accessory that way, but somehow RNGesus just came down from the heavens, sat on my lap, rubbed my tummy, and gave me this Magatama. But this is huge because I'm too lazy to farm white tiger fur for the sword that goes into the set bonuses for this. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. But eventually I will get the sword that matches this, forge it divine, or forge the divine sword for this build, for this set bonus. And then I'll probably maybe wear a different helmet, just aesthetically. I know I can do some refashioning and stuff, but more statistically speaking, I'd like to have maybe plus fire damage. I'm thinking maybe the Onryoki Kabuto would be a good match for this if I can forge, because I like the way it looks and it has some good stats on it, similar to this helmet. But anyways, that's the gear. Fanatic's Armor is a must for this build. And if you can't get the Magatama, it's not a huge deal, but that six piece bonus is huge. That plus 50% is absolutely huge. If you decide to use a different guardian spirit, you may be able to make up for it, but that spirit only comes towards the end of the game. So if you're not even into New Game Plus yet, it's obviously not doable. Anyways, as you can see, no Sloth. Carnage Talisman, pretty huge actually. Reduces your defense. First off, the defense on this armor is so high, and when I was lucky enough to get received damage from attack reduced in a critical state by 20% or 19.7, it doesn't. I mean, the reduced defense doesn't really hurt me, but the increased attack definitely helps me. So Carnage Talisman, definitely awesome. And I guess the only other thing is the quick change scroll, which I'll get into with some of the clips later on in the video. Depending on where your Amrita gauge is, which it should pretty much be full all the time, even if you just use your living weapon. You may want to use a quick change scroll just to have a backup in case you don't have your Amrita gauge all the way maxed out or ready to go into living weapon. If you use the different guardian spirits, quick change scrolls become more important, just to give you an oh shit button in case you die, because you will be playing a majority of the game, less than 30% health. I've been playing most of it with this build at 1 health, so that is important as well. Some of those other, like Guardian Spirit Talent, just some other stuff to get out some DPS. I'm honestly not too concerned about the magic or the ninjutsu, to be honest. Ninjutsu, to be honest, because the damage you're going to be outputting just with your weapons is just there's no need for it, which is part of the reason why I love this build. So that's the gear, that's the magic, that's the ninjutsu. Let's go into the guardian spirits and the 2 ways that you can play this build. So jumping into the guardian spirits and the 2 different ways you can play this build. One is using Suzaku, which you saw as a set piece bonus from the Fanatic's Armor. The interesting thing about using this guardian spirit is that you can keep your living weapon up without using Soulstones. That's where it kind of gets into the easy mode, though. And it's mostly because it's paired up with the Fanatic's Armor, and the second from the bottom and the last line in these stats. Every time you kill an enemy, your living weapon gauge will be completely replenished, and you can just run through a whole level with your living weapon. I'll show you some clips of that later on in the video, but that's where it gets into sort of an easy mode, and it's been done before. Plenty of people have the unlimited living weapon out there, but what differentiates it for me is A, you don't need to use Soulstones, and B, if you have enough finesse and you're good enough at the game, you won't need this oh shit button. But I like it because I'm not good at the game. But for those of you that are good at the game, and that fire damage is amazing, by the way, but for those of you who are good at the game, I recommend using Amrita Woman. I'm not going to say, even though the game tells me the name 100 million times, I am not going to embarrass myself and try to pronounce it. Source? Oh, the divine source. See that spirit required 23, 2 lines above that, or 1 line above that. Special effects when in a critical state. That's 20% on top of the 50% that you get from your Fanatic's Armor. Now that's huge, and this is where the quick change scrolls will come into or be a bigger part of your build, is that you'll be playing in a critical state, but you won't be able to fall back on the activate living weapon when you die from Suzaku. This build, to me, takes a lot of skill. You won't be using Sloth, hopefully, and the stat boosts you'll be getting from the fact that your health is in a critical state are extraordinary, and just depending on what you have on your gear, you probably won't be taking much damage anyways once your health is that low. So this is another great option as well. If for whatever reason you try this for a little bit, you find it too easy, I recommend jumping down to Amrita Woman, or the First. That's another good nickname, the First Spirit, and using her. Just some other things worth mentioning. Let's jump into the stats here. So, I am not even in clan date. If I was, and if you are and you're using Suzaku, it makes the build even that much more powerful. I forget the exact stats. Isn't it like it's like 100% living weapon durability and plus 5 seconds attached on to duration. So if you added date to this build, you'd be unstoppable. But yeah, that's pretty much a build in a nutshell. I'm just thinking over in my head if I missed anything, but really there's 2 different ways to play it, which to me makes it unique, and it doesn't rely on some of the more cheesier tactics. Obviously, if you use Suzaku, if you die, it will become cheesed, because your living weapon will stay up for the majority. And just, I guess, to emphasize that, I tested it out. See that last line there? Charge Amrita gauge when in critical state. That means when your health is in a critical state, the Amrita gauge charges automatically. And it takes 1 minute for it to charge. So, say you get killed by some random enemy, you jump into living weapon, and for whatever reason, you know, your living weapon ends in that same fight. You will get out of living weapon with 1 health, and it will take 1 minute for your gauge to recharge, and you have access to living weapon again. Now I'll just let that sink in as I move into some of the clips showing this build. Alrighty, on to the portion of the video that I'm sure most of you fast forwarded to make sure this build was worth your time, and my answer to that is it certainly is worth your time, and maybe 50% of the skill it takes in this build is figuring out how much damage or how many times you need to get hit before you go into critical health state. Obviously, you can do some other things like run into some fires and take some recurrent damage to get your health down into that nice region of all those buffs we get from the armor and maybe some of the stats you got on your weapons and all of that good stuff. But there is something and before I get into that, you can see my Amrita gauge in the top left. As soon as I dropped into a critical health state, it started replenishing right away, or filling up right away, I guess is a better word, or a better way to say it. And that fills up if you're just starting out a level like I just did and dropping right into critical health state. It takes about a minute. If you just dropped out a living weapon, maybe a minute and a half, because you have that timer that it takes before you see the Amrita gauge again. But I just died right there, and it's something I wanted to point out because there seems to be a couple of glitches using this type of build. Now, the glitches they don't ruin the build, but there are things that I definitely want to point out. So the reason I think I died there was because of recurrent damage. Typically what happens if I get hit by a sword or I get hit by some other attack, I drop right into living weapon and you just absolutely face roll the whole level, as you're going to see coming up here in a second. There I took some recurrent fire damage and living weapon didn't proc. And I've seen the same thing with poison damage, so I have to assume that that's a glitch, but you're not going to find yourself in that many situations where your health is that low and recurrent damage kills you like that, except for maybe a couple of bosses. One that just keeps running over and over in my mind is Ice Queen Woman. That's one where that could definitely happen. But it isn't build ruining. All you have to do is just deal with it, I guess. I'm not sure if that's I get no good advice. I'm not sure if that's intended or not, but it's not a huge deal because, like I said, most of the time you're just gonna get hit by a physical attack or a magic attack. Actually, at the end of this video, I get hit by Succubus Woman with her paralyzing attack, and that actually procced me into living weapon. It wasn't the actual status effect that procced me into it. So even in a situation like that, I was fine. The physical damage actually put me into it. The second glitch that I've encountered, and this one's kind of more of an annoyance, but it's easily rectified as I go into living weapon and start to just face roll everything. So when you drop out of living weapon, if you do at all, you might just face roll the whole mission and not even have to worry about it. But if you happen to take enough damage to drop out a living weapon and can't get enough Amrita to keep your gauge filled, and don't want to spam Soulstones, because this is cheesy as it is, but spamming Soulstones, come on. You'll have 1 health left. Obviously, that's a critical health state, regardless of what your health pool is. But sometimes I've noticed that my Amrita gauge won't start auto-charging or auto-filling when I'm in that state. And the way to rectify that is to just pop an elixir and either find an enemy to drop you back down into critical, or just find a fire to burn yourself into critical, but don't burn yourself to death, obviously. Those are the 2 minor annoyances I've found with this build. Even if that's not working as intended, it doesn't it doesn't ruin this, because once you guys try this build out, you'll notice that it just it's pretty easy. But the the one thing I like about this build is that it is what you make of it. And that sounds, I was just talking about cheese, that sounds really cheesy, but I want to explain. There is a portion of this build that you have that buffer where, you're going to see it actually coming up here in a second. I'm attacking Nioh, where hey, I learned how to really pronounce the name from the game. So thank you, Nioh, for teaching me. I've been pronouncing this name wrong. In all the videos I mentioned it, and I look like an ass clown. But what else is new? You'll see that I'm attacking Nioh here. In a window, I wouldn't normally attack him. Normally, I'll back out right here. I wouldn't go charge back in after he procs that poison attack, because I know that lightning's coming. But that buffer there makes me overconfident. I don't really care because I know I won't die. And it just becomes a simple boss. I was like level 119 there. Nioh is probably level 190. Just, it was a simple exercise. But not really an exercise, because a fun exercise. But what I mean by it being able to make of it what you want is that you can switch over to Spirit Amrita that we first have in the beginning of the game. I'm done trying to pronounce names because I'm sure I've already mispronounced like 700 of them in this video. Once you feel confident enough using the build, the way to play this build that I'm showing you in this video, you can move over into her. 20% increase the special effects when in critical. That's huge. That gives you 70%. That is massive, depending on what you have on your equipment and what you have for accessories. That is amazing. Obviously, it won't be as strong as being able to drop into living weapon and have the living weapon up the whole mission, but it's definitely something that you can switch over to challenge yourself in. There isn't just one way to play this build, and that's part of the reason why I love it so much, and part of the reason why I wanted to share it with you guys. This clip I just showed you here, it's another clip just showing you how fast the gauge refills after living weapon drops, but that's pretty much the video. That's all first region fights. I expect to apply it to every other region in the game. I'm just going through all the bosses in my head right now and all the missions in my head right now. Batman's probably your biggest adversary in this build. They knocked me off the cliff a couple of times. I don't see any problems using this for the rest of the game, and having any frustrations. And I wanted to share with you guys, and more importantly, I wanted to get your thoughts on the build in the comments and things you guys would do to make this build better. Maybe make it more, I guess, more challenging, maybe. Thoughts on what you guys use, what combinations you guys use, because I think that's the best part of videos like this, is finding out what everybody else uses to make the game fun in their own way. And try some of that stuff out for myself. Obviously, you guys probably have Divine Equipment plus 10 and all this stuff, which is really cool, and I can't wait to get to that point. But I'm rambling now. I'm going to leave you guys with some sexy succubus fighting. And, I mean, what better way to end a video than some of that as I get hit by that attack. Oh, I suck! But, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Most importantly, I hope you are enjoying life. I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy out there, everybody.